We go out to the Make It Right Call Kyle Wright hotline. Emory Hunt, he's joined us in the past. He's of CBS Sports, owner of Football Game Plan. He joins us here on The Fan. Hello, Emory. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine, man. I appreciate you guys bringing me on as always.
No, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I know you're deep into your combine coverage as you guys are getting things ready over there at Football Game Plan. I know you have the your draft mock-ups and everything like that. You can pre-order and all that. But I want to do a quick thing on the Browns before we get into the combine and some of the draft preview stuff. I know you're a big Shedeur guy. I'm a big Shedeur guy as well. Where do you sit right now in regards to Shedeur and where the Browns are at the quarterback spot, not only heading into the draft, but also with some of these other names that keep popping up, and then obviously the prospect of Shedeur keeping the job?
I think Shedeur is the guy. It's always fascinating when, you have – we said this before where if guys had Shedeur Sanders as QB1 or QB2 or a top 40 quote-unquote talent all throughout 2024 up until April 30th, 2025, then what changed just because he went in the fifth round? So he is still the talent that you thought he was, and it's cool that he got out there and got those starts in. 7 games, 7 weeks of first-team reps. They went 3-4 in those starts. They should have been 5-2. I'm looking at that Bills game, and I'm looking at that doggone Titans game. So if they're 5-2 going into the offseason, you feel pretty good, especially winning against the Steelers and Bengals and how they won both of those games to close out the season. You'll be feeling pretty good considering the context around Shedeur is that when he got out there to start, he was essentially out there with an NFL Europe roster. There were times I couldn't know if I was watching the Browns or the Barcelona Dragons. So, but all the guys that were out with injury. And so now you just project forward, okay, if he gets, full off season of being quote unquote the guy with a full, runway of those guys that are starters on offense, and you add more talent to this team, Browns would be cooking with gas. And again, if they were 5-2 as opposed to 3-4, you're probably feeling different about Shedeur. So I think Shedeur is their guy. I like Shedeur. I like his game. I like the toughness that he has, the mental toughness, and a lot of that manifested itself out there on the field. So I think they have their quarterback. I look for them to build around him in terms of the offensive line and the skill positions and add depth to the defense.
Well, outside of Fernando Mendoza, he's going to go number 1 overall. I think everyone is on board with that. Is there a quarterback in this draft class better than Shedeur Sanders, in your opinion, available?
There is not. There is not. And not even Mendoza. I have a higher grade on Shedeur than I did on anybody in this draft class. And remember, people just here's the funny thing about this draft class at the quarterback position. April 30th, 2025, everyone was saying, Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, Carson Beck, Arch Manning, and a litany of others. And now everybody's speaking Spanish. Nobody mentioned Mendoza until, all those other dudes that I just named flamed out. So I would say Mendoza compares a little bit to me like a little bit more athletic version of Jared Goff. I like his game. I think he's more, and I said this before, and people thought it was a hot take, but it's not necessarily to me. I think he's more of a second-round talent. Now, that doesn't mean he can't go in round 1, or in this case, the number 1 overall pick. But you're going to need a lot around him for him to have the same success he had at Indiana, which is fine. It's what you're supposed to do as an NFL franchise. But there's no quarterback in this class that's better than what the Browns currently have on their roster.
Shedeur didn't throw at the combine last year. He got a lot of flack for it. Mendoza's not throwing at the draft this year. Should Mendoza be taking some flack for that as well then?
But he gives great interviews, though, man. I mean, it's just so loving. Like, of course, he shouldn't be taking flack because Shedeur shouldn't have taken flack last year. And this is not new. We've seen these quarterbacks not throw, and I don't blame him for not throwing. You have nothing to lose. You have a lot to lose and nothing to gain. Mm-hmm. So if you're Fernando Mendoza, it's not like he's trying to be a top 5 pick. You're projected number 1 overall. There's nothing to gain from going out there and throwing. And I'm glad he touched on it, in terms of like, hey, I'm going to be going out there with guys that I just met that day, and we're trying to, develop some chemistry, some timing. Now, it's a great opportunity for everyone else behind Mendoza to make a name for themselves because I feel like QB2 is up for grabs here in Indy, although I have Taylor Green as my QB2 in this draft class, the kid out of Arkansas that plays a lot like Randall Cunningham, Colin Kaepernick, Vince Young. and worked with Bobby Petrino for the last 2 years. That's someone I think in a setting like this will have a huge showing in terms of how he runs, how he throws, and just his makeup as a quarterback.
Which position group are the on-field workouts most important for at the combine?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say it's probably wide receiver, because you have a lot coming at you. And the one thing the layperson, the fan, understands out of anything is receivers are supposed to catch. So you can't be out there dropping everything, because then they'll just quickly say, oh, yeah, he's not a good receiver, right? So there's the pressure there for the receiver to catch everything, regardless of who's throwing the football or how long you've known the guy. And second, you learn a lot about these guys' ability to adapt, because if we think about how the college game is, there's a lot of manufactured receptions. You know, you see some guys, 16 catches for 300 yards, when 17 of those catches was pre-bubble screen behind the line of scrimmage. So it's like, now we get to see you get out there, run routes, try to find the ball, try to locate the football, and you learn a lot about guys' hands as well. And even in drops, you could drop the ball and I still trust your hands. And there's a way you drop the ball where I'm like, he can't catch a cold laying on ice in Chicago. So there's levels to this, right? And so for him, for receivers, I think it's more pressure on them, because everyone loves to talk O-line, but nobody cares about O-linemen in terms of the drills, because you want to see the physicality. You can't get that with those guys, or defensive linemen. Defensive backs, everybody just wants to see those guys run and judge them on how fast they are. But receivers, I feel like the pressure is on them from the time they step out there to the time they leave.
Emory Hunt, CBS Sports, owner of Football Game Plan, joining us here on the Make It Right, Call Kyle Wright hotline. All right, let's fix some stuff for the Browns for Shedeur's sake. 6 and number 24 overall. That's what the Browns have. Give me some names. We're looking for wide receivers and then some offensive linemen as well, but in particular some wide receivers to help out this team.
Because I'm so savvy at this draft thing, guys, how about this? How about we double down on offensive linemen, tackle and tackle guard. So if you like Francis Malinois out of Miami, who could be a tackle, but also has ability to play inside, I could see that being the case at 6. And who's my number one tackle class? Monroe Freeling of Georgia. So you can get him at 24. Now you've answered offensive line, because, we've talked about this in terms of like how people view this draft class at wide receivers. It's deep. So even if you're looking at how I have it broken down, because I break it down by 4 different positions, your X receiver, Z, slot, and I'll call this position the big inside receiver, which is kind of like that Marcus Colson type prototype. So number 1 X, I have Jordan Tyson, Arizona State. Number 1 Z, I have Cornell Tate, Ohio State. Slot receiver number 1 is Mekhi Lemon, and my number 1 inside receiver is Denzel Boston. Any one of those 4 at 6 or 24 would be great for the Browns, because it gives them a bona fide go-to guy. Now, if you're going to go with my plan and double down on O-lineman right out the gate in the first round, then you're looking at round 2. You're looking at, okay, is a Chris Brazell out of Tennessee the guy you like? I like him a lot as well, too. Big, tall receiver that can go get it. I'm a big Ted Hurst guy of Georgia State. Plays a lot like George Pickens, has that same type of mentality that you like out there. Now, you can't have too many of those guys on the same team, on the same side of the ball. Otherwise, it's a mutiny waiting to happen. But you need at least 3 of them. And so he is another one that I'm a big fan of, that can be that big dog type of wide receiver. And a deep sleeper that no one's talking enough about, but he's going to be here at the Combine as well. I like Bryce Lance out of North Dakota State, 6'3", 205, can play above the rim, like you want a big receiver to play, but also has the ability to weave his way in and out of traffic like a New York cab with the ball in his hand. So you get those type of abilities with big guys. So they can address receiver throughout, but I feel like if they're going to swing from the fences, especially considering how their current offensive line looks now, if the season started today, they'd be out there with no O-lineman. Now, I know some Browns fans may say that's how they played the entire season anyway, but I will say I would be more than likely to double down on O-lineman right now before you go to the Casey Concepcions and all those great receivers, because you got to be able to block up front first.
Emory Hunt, CBS Sports, obviously the owner of Football Game Plan. You're fantastic. Every time you come on, we appreciate you giving us a few minutes, and we'll catch up with you down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Good stuff right there with Emory on the Make It Right. Call Kyle Wright hotline.